Good afternoon. It's September 10th, 2023. My name is PJ Shamil. I'm going to do a garden walk today through my 3+ acre edible forest garden in Lawton, Michigan. And I thought I would start it off on the opposite end that I normally start from, just to change things up a bit and give people something different to look at instead of the same old route every time. So right off the bat, I want to point out there's something interesting going on here on the power lines. There's almost 100 birds perched, and they're pretty much all facing the same direction. And I'm not sure what kind of bird they are because my eyes are not that great, and they haven't really moved or made any sounds. Maybe I heard one that sounded kind of like a mourning dove, but I'm presuming they're all the same species. So maybe if they get startled and fly off, we'll get a better look at them. But anyway, it's a bit ominous having them kind of perched over the garden here this afternoon. But it's late summer, almost getting close to fall, and things are pretty dry. You're going to see some trees starting to senesce a little bit here. It's been a pretty dry summer. Had some good rain mid-August or so, early August to mid-August, I want to say. But then it's been fairly dry. No huge rains recently, so the soil's dried out quite a bit. And if I pan down to the soil somewhere here, you'll probably see. But anyway, we're looking north right now along the power lines, which run through the whole garden. And over in this area, there's a bunch of American persimmons, including a few that I grafted this year. And as we look west, this area here, beyond this pine tree, this is what I would consider my oak savanna area. And in the southwest corner over here, there's a lot of new tree tubes, and I've planted a lot of new chestnut trees back here this spring, but they're not doing that hot. And maybe I planted them last fall. Yeah, but anyway, they're not doing very well. So if I go into the ground here, you'll see kind of what kind of soil we've got to work with here. It's very dry and sandy, powdery, not much topsoil. Mostly it's kind of like beach sand with a little bit of topsoil on top of it. So we'll walk north today instead of south. We'll see how the sunlight favors us. I'm hoping that I won't be shooting into the sunlight. Maybe things will be illuminated. Now we're kind of behind a cloud, so the lighting is pretty nice, but got some different oaks here at pretty wide spacings. They're about 30, 40 foot spacings in general. And these are all low tannin type oaks that are supposed to have been okay for dry, sandy conditions. So the only one that's really been making acorns so far is this one right here, which is Bergamble oak. And I've also got some bur oaks. I've got some wild bur oaks on site, and those I think are making some acorns. So these are the Bergamble acorns, and they're a decent size. You know, of course, oak trees attract so much insect and other wildlife that you're going to have, insect damage and galls and leaf problems. This one here, the tree looks pretty good. I've got some black oaks over in the hedgerow that look very rough. Their leaves are all tattered and half dead looking. So I really have to memorize the names of these oaks. But here's one here, and this one here in front of us is probably almost 20 feet tall, I would say. It's been here for 11 growing seasons, I want to say. And that one over there is similar, probably in height. I think this one here is either a bur oak or a type of bur oak, and that one is not quite as tall. That one's maybe 14, 15 feet high. And the one farther beyond there, that one's even smaller. That one had some problems and died to the ground once and almost had to regrow entirely. So I'm going to pan over this way. Another nice oak there. I think that one is called Bimundors. And there's an American plum that I spaded back here. And this mound of lighter green, kind of reddish tinged green, it goes all the way from over here to way over there. That's all one plant of American plum, Prunus americana. And there's a grapevine of fox grape growing over that. And we ate a few of the grapes the other day. They were pretty good. They are very much like a Concord grape. I think that's what the Concord was bred from. So very nice grapey, super grapey, foxy flavor, which I enjoy. Yeah, this Bimunder's oak, it's also probably 15 feet tall, I want to say. And it's got some branches right low to the ground. I haven't pruned any of those yet, but I may in the future. So looking this way, here we have wild black cherry. We have some pines, some persimmons in the background. In the foreground here we have some false indigo. I want to look at these birds. I'm going to zoom in. There's a white one up there. Maybe they're protecting the albino land. But look at all these things. It's pretty wild. I counted there were about 90, I think. So yeah, neat. So looking this way, you'll see that the sumacs are starting to turn a little bit. I think that's more related to drought than related to the season. We've had some cool nights, but nothing terribly cold. We got into the 40s, upper 40s a few times. Here's a couple of hazelnuts that had some nuts on them this year for the first time in any quantity anyway. So I'm gonna probably start harvesting these soon to see what they're like. And I should have brought my nutcracker thing out in the field with me, but you can see the husks are kind of starting to turn, and when they open up and you see color inside, then you know, and also when the nut releases from the husk easily, that that's ready to harvest. So this could have even been harvested earlier. These nuts are wider than they are tall, not very big, but and these are mostly singles and doubles here on this bush. Sometimes you'll get, you know, clusters of 6, 8 or more. But a decent amount on this. That one's got some that are 4, clusters of 4 or so. And the singles tend to be larger, which makes sense than say if you get 6 or 7 in one cluster. White birch there with a white pine behind it. Another white birch there. Plums behind it. So I planted a whole row of evergreens at one time, probably 10, 11 years ago. But some of them have been subsumed by the American plum, and there's also some wild oaks coming in here. And so yeah, there you can see there's a white pine, some kind of spruce there, and then there should have been a whole row going to this white pine, another spruce there behind this red pine, another red pine down there. But anyway, some of them have been lost. And my row of eastern red cedars here, they're going, you can see the ones I cut last winter. These bigger ones will now kind of grow together and fill that space out, because that's my neighbor's driveway over there. Around here, not much to say. This catalpa is looking pretty good. This wild serviceberry here, or maybe this is a serviceberry that I planted. Can't remember. It's got pretty gnarly cedar apple rust damage this year. Oh, it's actually got little growth bodies on it. That's interesting. I've not noticed that before. Wow. Wild. I'm not going to walk down here all the way, but there's a red pine, a couple of tulip trees, and between them there's a catalpa. The Canada goldenrod is kind of at peak flower now, and this chestnut here got killed to the ground by ambrosia beetles, and then it regrew a bunch of stems, and then the deer have just been on it all summer. So I'm going to have to cage that this winter, maybe choose one of these stems to become the new tree and cage it, because the deer won't leave it alone. Looking this way, we've got a few, can't really see them well, but there's a few pecans in here, seedling pecans. There's one there, there's one, a couple there, and there's some more chestnuts farther down the way. Several chestnuts right here that we will go look at in a minute. You can see there's some deer rub damage. So as I'm looking at this western edge of my site here, kind of where it meets the neighbor's property, I've got some, there used to be a row of, I think they were red pines, which is the stuff that looks dead here. And then some hardwoods have grown up in the meantime, and some things that I planted, like this white birch. But some of these wild hardwoods are growing much faster than some of the things I planted. So lots of oak trees here, oak volunteers. There's a couple sugar maples, there's bur oak, black oak. There's some white chestnuts on there. But anyway, some of these oak trees look really crappy. So I think I might take note of the ones that look really bad and remove some of those. But if I zoom up here, you can see there's some acorns on this. I think that's a bur oak. And this little oak here, this is probably a red oak, and it's pretty tattered, not looking too hot. So anyway, I'm gonna come through with my marking tape and flag some of these things to be possibly removed. We'll walk a bit different. Hopefully this will be a shorter video than normal today because I'm not walking in a big loop. I'm not going to return to where I started from. I've seen a couple more box turtles around this summer in different places, which has been nice to see. Always enjoy seeing them. Makes me think I'm not doing everything totally wrong if I encounter those kind of cool critters on the site. Here's a graft of chestnut, whip and tongue graft there, and it just finished flowering. There's some spent flowers there because the graft wood is much younger than the main rootstock wood is, so they're several months apart from each other in growth. We've got a autumn olive here. Some of these didn't really fruit at all this year. And look at the growth on this pear tree here. There's those birds again. So this pear tree is nearly healed over. Not quite there. I don't think it's going to make it this season. I'll be surprised if it does. But we've got about a 1/4 of an inch there to fill over before that is a closed wound. And so the sumacs are looking attractive. These winged sumacs flowered and fruited much later than the staghorn sumacs, and they have these real glossy, beautiful, tart berries. They're kind of shiny. They have none of the fuzziness of the staghorn, and they can be used in the same way you can make lemonade out of them. And I think I've heard recently too that the dried berries of sumacs are great for smoking honeybees out of their in or out of their homes, however the hell people use smoke with honeybees. Yeah, these birds kind of freaking me out a little bit. They're just watching me. I wonder if I get too close, if I'm gonna, if the leader of them gets spooked, then if all of them will fly somewhere. If they do, I'm gonna have to run for cover because they might crap on me. There's some pawpaws over here, but I'm not gonna go walk over and show those because they're not too impressive. They're looking a little sad in the drought this year. Thankfully, we have not had an oppressively hot summer. It's been hot a few times. We got, some 90+ degree days, or feels like 100+ degree days, but nowhere near as bad as a lot of other people had it this summer, so I won't complain too much. Resprout growth on this cherry, and it looks like the deer have been managing this a little bit, which is fine. They can have it. I really don't need more trunks here. This is the one trunk I left, and maybe someday that'll get cut down to give more light where it's needed. Pecan tree there. There's a pecan tree here. Sorry for any glare we're seeing here. Don't like to shoot toward the sun. But there's several pecans. There's one there, one there. Let's see if I can get away from the sun. Show you this graft of American persimmon. And the deer have not seemed to really favor American persimmon for browsing so far, which I'm thankful for. Or pawpaws. Chestnuts, yes. Mulberries, probably. But yeah, they have their favorites. There's a young chestnut there. There's a nice swamp white oak here, this tall thing. That is a beautiful tree. I didn't plant it, but I'm happy to have it here. So this shrubby small tree here is a Castanea pumila, I think is how you say it. The chinkapin, Allegheny chinkapin maybe, some kind of a chinkapin species. Has small nuts. They're usually born singly in the burrs, and they'll be probably another 2 or 3 weeks until these start to open, I think. Last year, the first nuts that I had opening or falling were on this huge chestnut tree ahead of us. That was the timber chestnut from Oikos. Just show you how some of these other chinkapins are growing. You might be able to see that they kind of get a fissure down the center. That's where they'll split. I think they kind of split into 2 pieces rather than 4. But yeah, some of these small ones will not have any viable nuts in them. They'll just be duds. So here, flopping over into the path, we've got goldenrod, probably Canada goldenrod, and we've got kind of just the very remnants of ironweed, the purple flowers. I'm not really seeing any flowers left on that. But they're maybe a month or so ago. Oh, I'm sorry, here we are. So yeah, these are a late ironweed. That's 6-7 feet tall there. So in this area, what I'm going to have to do here any day now is come in with my scythe and mow the understory here so that I can see when these chestnuts are falling and have kind of a level, flat base to view them on, because they usually fall out of the husks and they can be a little hard to see in tall vegetation. Now the animals will be able to find them no problem, but for me, even if I come here 2 or 3 times a day looking for them, the animals usually have started beating me to them. So yeah, that's becoming a challenge. So this tree has had some leaf problems this year. Overall, pretty good, glossy, nice leaves. I'm gonna go into the canopy here. Maybe if I zoom in, you can sort of see there are some burrs up there. You know, there's several hundred burrs on this tree this year. I think this Chinese type chestnut over here only has maybe 20 or so burrs on it, not very many. Probably maybe even less than it had last year. So this one here has always got major leaf problems. And this one here looks like it's dying of blight. It's got some big time trunk issues, mushrooms growing off of it and that fissuring. So this one may not be long for the world. But that's okay, we can deal with that. We've planted some of the progeny. We got some nuts here. This one's got several dozen nuts on it. Even though it's got blight problems, I would still replant those nuts in hopes that the next generation, you know, at least could live long enough to fruit. And maybe over time we'll find some more resistant genetics. Just a couple nuts on this one here, maybe half a dozen or a dozen. This one here, I'm not really seeing much of anything. These trees were all planted at the same time, I think in 2012, and haven't grown that well. They've died to the ground. Most of them died to the ground at least once in one of the, maybe the polar vortex winters. So not ideal. Now this timber chestnut here with the massive trunk, this one I don't think ever did die to the ground. So this, for that and other reasons, it's so much nicer than all my other chestnut trees, and actually all my other trees in general that I've planted. This is by far the standout. So I've got seedlings of it that I have planted. I think the chipmunks left me a couple that I didn't yank out and destroy. So if I have some of those, I'm going to replant a few here maybe, and maybe give a few away to selected friends to try to get those genes out into the world. Wild mulberry that I grafted with Illinois everbearing mulberry with very large leaves. Cages for the deer because deer like to browse mulberry, but you can see the difference in the leaf shape and size. So that one's pretty small, and these things are quite large and pretty good growth. It's a bark inlay type graft. It's not healing over super well. May have to remove that tape here at the end of the season. This little baby chestnut over there. Oh, see, there's a little movement on those birds over there. I saw a couple fly away, but they're just roosting elsewhere. So looking this way, we've got some old raggedy mulberry trees here. A pretty large walnut here that has almost no nuts on it, so I don't think it's a real winner production-wise. There's a chestnut that's died to the ground several times over the last 10 or 11 years. A 9 bark that's showing some drought stress. This is my usually pretty picturesque wildflower garden. It's pretty much done for the season. The main thing happening, there's some showy goldenrod down there, those flame-shaped flower tufts. And up here in the canopy, we've got black locust, and there's one chestnut there that flowered, or I had one fruit, I think, last year, or one nut. This year it's taken the year off because it probably maybe shouldn't have been allowed to make a nut that soon in its life, but live and learn. The overstory here, there's going to be some thinning happening this winter again. I'm going to be flagging these things while they still have their leaves on them, so that I can kind of take note of what may be casting too much shade on what else. And I think a lot of this black locust, it's not going to be large enough to be very useful for, maybe for a tool handle or something, but not for fence posts. They've got to be, you know, a pretty good diameter for that. So this showy goldenrod here, not quite at peak flower. And then I learned something. I've been calling something, I think I was calling this plant here, I think I was calling that tall coreopsis, but I think that's called prairie coreopsis. And I think this is tall coreopsis here. So apologies for people who may have caught that in my other videos. I talk out of my ass a lot probably. Don't take anything I say as authoritative. I'm just a fool out here, you know, bumbling around in my garden. Yeah, you get a lot of pollinator action on these showy goldenrods. They have a really nice smell, much more so than, say, the Canada goldenrod. I mean, the Canada goldenrod is pretty attractive to wildlife, but I don't see nearly as much action on it as I do the showy and some of the others. So walking through here, here's my little test pit pond. This tree's got a bunch of new sprouts this year, this chestnut. I don't know why. Chestnuts, I seem to be fighting them always from resprouting at the base. It seems maybe it's my management is wrong, but not having the best luck keeping them as single trunk trees. They like to resprout for some reason. This chestnut's got a fair amount of burrs on it this year. It had some viable nuts last year for the first time after making empty burrs many times. So it's dropping some here that are just duds. Maybe it's just shedding these as a, oh, they're prickly. Just shedding these to as dead weight kind of. But those are some of the first burrs I've seen falling. If I shake this tree, yeah, there's a few things falling and these are opening, but they're probably all duds, which is fine. The tree doesn't need to do anything with those. Yeah. Okay, so going this way, we're gonna start getting in. There's more black locust in the overstory, and I've learned a lesson too on limbing up black locust. So I was doing some limbing to get rid of the lower branches on these things because my goal was to have them as poles eventually, pole wood, fence posts and whatnot. And I think by doing that, I've caused them to get blown over in the wind. So you'll see some up here that are laying crooked from either heavy moisture or windstorms or something. And the combination of the two kind of laid them over in a way where they're not going to right themselves. So these will just be cut down. These aren't useful for anything really. They're not really in a good spot anyway. So got a little chestnut here that I'm trying to get to grow. This stuff here is the staghorn sumac, which is probably the more common sumac that people know. Though a lot of people think everything is poison sumac if it's got sumac in the name, even though that only grows in swampy areas. But this plant is fuzzy. The stems are fuzzy, the berries are fuzzy. This may be a male plant here if it doesn't have berries on it. And here's more black locust that's kind of flopped over. I've got a lot of those around here. Little chestnut that the deer keep eating. There's a bird over there maybe eating some, there's a cardinal. Maybe he's eating some seeds from these things. So here we've got some goldenrod, but what I wanted to show here, this is an exciting milestone. This is my first glimpse at cornelian cherry fruit, Cornus moss. It is a dogwood, it's not really a cherry, but the fruits are pretty good size, but they've got a big seed inside. So this came off my hand, but it's not soft yet. So I think if I were to bite into this, it would not be very sweet or be barely palatable probably. So I think once they're ripe, they get almost translucent, and then they're softer and sweeter. I'm gonna bite this, but it's probably awful. And then just see if I can show you the seed that's inside. Yeah, it really doesn't taste good. Whoa, major astringency. So there's a oblong seed in there. So yeah, if that can stick on the tree for another week or two, maybe they'll be edible. That's not a cultivar of that species, that's just a wild one. So I don't know if they will ever be very palatable, but we'll see over time. Could always, maybe it could be grafted. If I want to get into that, I've heard they're not super easy to graft, but I could try, nothing to lose. This winkle chestnut has some ragged leaves and a few nuts on it. Thinking maybe I should not have left the nuts on that last year because I probably stunted the tree, and then deer have come and chewed up a bunch of the branches. So that one had some setbacks. Now through here, this is the wild goose plum that we transplanted with the truck tree spade. And then there's black locust in here, and of course sumacs. But there's a chestnut here, a seedling chestnut that's got nuts somewhere. Some of the first nuts on a seedling chestnut that I've ever planted. Where are they now? I see there's a couple there. So there's, yeah, just a few, but that's pretty exciting. You know, it's only 12 feet tall maybe, and it's not a real big diameter at breast height. It's a inch and a half maybe. So yeah, that's cool. Maybe I should remove the burrs on that too. Maybe I'll be setting that tree back, but don't know. Okay, moving on, 25 minutes in. So you'll see there's a lot of annoying grasses that make these kind of purple seed head things. There's these taller ones, which I really hate. Then there's this is little blue stem, which I don't hate so much. It's just a part of the mix here, always has been. And there's some that are ornamental, like this little thing here, little drift. I think that might be a native grass of some type. Also not my favorite. They make little like tumbleweed things when the seed heads dry out. They blow around and plant everywhere, but they're, I think, a warm season grass. So let's see, this little hedgerow remnant, nothing really to see there. Nine bark, lilac, serviceberry, low growing American hazelnut. This area, those pecans are growing real well. Another showy goldenrod over there. That's a nicer specimen. Do I want to walk all the way through here? There's not so much to show. Maybe I'll just do halfway. So we'll come through here. This is a tulip tree the deer have abused several times, and it's kind of bouncing back. I didn't plant it, so I don't really care what happens to it. This pear tree that I grafted, I had to cut the whole top off because it was so top heavy. Again, like the black locust, I was afraid it was going to blow over and storm. So I need to trim off probably 2/3 of these branches to get this to be a better balanced plant. So here, some grafts that I did this year. This is a Missouri gooseberry that's being chewed on by the deer and getting a little fall color. No fruit on that because no pollinator, I think. This was an Aromania quince that I grafted onto Callery pear. So this is the Callery pear crap that's growing through. If I didn't cage it like this, the deer would have just annihilated it. So we can just snap off this junk. Here's another branch that is quince that the deer, they haven't come back to it in a few weeks, so it's regrown a bit. Little apple, I think that's Candy Crisp that I grafted. Another same thing, Candy Crisp. The deer have eaten that multiple times. There's an Asian pear onto Callery. There's a pawpaw from my old compost pile. Here's my pretty good hazelnut that is not as heavily loaded this year as it has been other years. Maybe it's getting too much shade from this wild goose plum or something. Here's a pawpaw graft that I've done, one of the more successful pawpaw grafts I've done. That's got a good 12 inches of growth on it. Autumn olive having some ready to eat fruit, and there's some autumn olives over there that have fruit that's ready. Catalpas, I'm not going to show all this crap over here. Here's a gumi graft onto autumn olive. That one's growing pretty well. The deer have been hitting some of the ones I've done, so I think if they didn't have cages, they would be browsed. And what's funny is the deer don't seem to care about regular autumn olive at all, but for some reason gumi is more attractive to them. So pardon this mess, that doesn't belong to me. I've got plenty of my own messes over here, but that one's not mine. Here's nannyberry, kind of going into fall senescence a little bit. Most of the berries are still kind of yellowish green. There's a few that are turning purple, and these are edible as they turn purple and soft. Now these ones that are premature, they might have bug problems or something, but I've been eating a few, and they're pretty good. They taste good. Not like any obvious big worm or anything in there. So this quince, ornamental type quince, there are some fruits on here, but they're withering in the drought, I think. Not getting much size to them. Very small. So anyway, I'm not going to walk through that mess there. It's my old vegetable garden. There's a Rose of Sharon still flowering there. One of the birds flew off, but most of them are still up there. Here's a gumi on autumn olive that the deer have so far missed. I should put a cage around it because they have hit most of the other ones I've done. So here we've got just some goldenrod that's flowering and not much else. The monardas, just one or two odd pieces of monardas that are still going. The river oats are looking kind of ornamental now. They'll get even more attractive as these seed heads dry down. But let's see the action on this showy goldenrod here. We'll see quite a few things. Probably I'm going to be quiet. Some honeybees. Bumblebees. I learned recently, this is funny, I was talking to one of my neighbors and I mentioned something about honeybees and how I have a lot of honeybees in my garden. I said, I wonder if somebody keeps honeybees around here. And he said, oh yeah, there's a guy that's been keeping honeybees at my place for years. And that's probably where all these damn honeybees are coming from. So I'm not really fond of honeybees. They're not essential, they're not native. They do something, but they're not anything that the native bees couldn't do 5 times better. And they're also a type of livestock that humans are exploiting, so I'm not really a big fan. You know, I don't harm them, and I'm happy to have them in a way. Blue jay raising a ruckus here. Train going by. These seedling beds are not doing too hot. That one's got some willows and elderberries mostly, and a couple currants. But yeah, I'm not a huge honeybee fan. I wouldn't keep them myself, and I'm just not really into the idea of honeybees when there's so many good native bees around. This seedling bed, mostly boart nuts over here from Jim Somerville's trees, and deer browse on these brambles. And I've got some little sad American chestnuts, or what I think are American, from the tree I found in Pawpaw. Still a good crop on these apple trees. They've been falling here and there. Not really good fruit, too many, too small, not prime. This little multi-graft tree has a few fruits on it that are a decent size. Let me see if this one comes off in my hand. This looks pretty inviting here. It's got bird damage. That's why it's maturing faster, but the size of it's good. It's still pretty hard, so I'm going to leave that. This Jonagold tree has basically nothing. This yellow delicious has some fruit on it still, and a lot of it's got quite a blush. And this mystery tree here, that's the most loaded, but also the worst quality of any. So coming this way, still having more garden tours, and that's been going okay. Although the garden is less and less impressive as the season winds down. Oh, that's a weird looking bug there. I don't know if that's a nymph of something related to a stink bug. It looks like a stink bug shape. I should learn that because I don't like stink bugs too much. You can still see a flower piece of female flower on this chestnut here. This is a graft I stuck onto this secondary branch, and this is also shooting multiple branches or new trunks up. So better get through the garden pretty quick here. My battery may run out. This European type hazel, these are almost done and ripe. Goddamn stink bug on that too. But you see these nuts are larger, but they've got lots of damage, and these have been falling now for a week or two. And the American hazels, like we saw earlier, this one's not quite ripe yet. These are another week or two here, but bigger clusters of smaller nuts. Tansy is still flowering. Let me refocus here, sorry. This camera is shit for autofocusing. Got some pear trees on this tree here that they are probably ready to pick now. These are the pears that need a couple of weeks off the tree to mature and have a good texture. I'm going to shake this a bit. Okay, we had some that fell. So these are rock hard peaches. I might take some of these. And they're not very big. They're pretty paltry size. They should be about 1.5 times the size of that. But I will take those and put them on the counter, and hopefully they will soften up and be edible. Because right now they have no flavor and they're hard as rocks. What's to see over here? Not much. This cultivar autumn olive with the golden fruit, shaped like a butt. These are kind of getting ripe now. You can see this butt shape maybe. They're strange. These are called amber. Have a pretty mild flavor, sour and mild, not really amazing. Missed the American plum harvest. That was a couple of weeks ago, maybe in between videos or maybe closer to my last video. The Siberian sea peach, still pretty hard, but it's getting some color to it. Not very big size. we'll see how big that gets. This is the first fruit on that tree. Cup plant is basically done. Now it's just pretty much goldfinch food and habitat with the little cups where you'll get bees sitting in there and whatnot. Otherwise, in this part of the garden, the main show is my other peach tree. This mulberry grass just keeps flopping around in the wind. Look at the big leaves on that thing. Pretty huge. Trying to get it to grow straighter, but it just kind of wants to flop, so we'll see. So far the deer have ignored it. Let's go look at this peach before we run out of memory. Green-headed coneflower is flowering, and now we're kind of to the area where I normally start the videos. So this peach tree still has some peaches. They've been falling for the last week or so. Some, you get in here, getting some color, a little blush to them. Too many, really. In the canopy especially, I should have thinned those out. But if I give this a shake, we'll get some more that fall. But I've been sharing some of these with friends, and they're a pretty good peach. About baseball size right now. Still fairly firm, but yeah, we'll take some more of these home. They got a little bug problem, some splitting maybe from a good rain that we had. You know, the deer, other animals have been coming to eat them at nighttime. I don't know what animals. I should put the camera out and see. But anyway, that's about the most exciting thing happening at this garden now. I forgot to point out, I have like 1 or 2 flowers of New England aster that are flowering the deer mist. But almost all of the ones up here they should be 6 feet tall and full of purple flowers right now, the deer have obliterated this year. For some reason, they've really had a taste for those. So there's going to be a gateway here soon, taking out about 10 feet of the hedgerow between that flag and this flag. And there will be a gateway because when people visit the garden, they park over there and they walk this way. So it'll make a more inviting entrance and a more obvious place to enter the garden. Quinces are sizing up a bit, getting some color to them. They're nowhere near ripe yet, but they're getting bigger anyway. There's about a half a dozen on the bush this year, or the tree. And this graft is doing pretty nicely. So there's my graft union there. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of this, or at least put you to sleep peacefully. So I will talk to you later. Bye.